What's up, chef?
Hello.
What are you making?
Scottish favourite, minced and tatties.
You mean mince and tatties?
No, no, I'm getting fucking minced. Hey, right. Suppose you want to know what we need.
No? Oh, right, okay.
You need mince, oddly enough. Diced carrots and diced onions. I've got a couple of sprigs of thyme and a bay leaf. You don't need to have that. I've got some beef dripping. This is for flavour. Salt, pepper. I've got whole carrots and quartered onions, just for a garnish. But first I want to speak about the mince. So this is butcher's mince, but if you buy supermarket mince you want to drain it. Now they've always got those fanny pads in the bottom of them for absorbing the blood. You better get mince from the butcher. I know it costs a little bit. I know. But if you buy mince from the butcher you might think it's a bit more expensive, but really you get more for your money. So okay. So I've got a pan on hot, because that's how you cook. And the first thing I'm going to do is not brown my mince. First thing I'm going to do is brown my onions, followed by the carrots. So, a bit of beef dripping. Take it off the heat just to get it in. You can use oil if you want. I'm using beef dripping for flavour. You don't want too much. Get the onions in. Get them nice and brown.
What could you do if you didn't like onions?
Starve.
But isn't there a way of getting the flavour?
Yeah, of course. So
what, is this what your mum does?
my father doesn't like onions, so my mother puts in the whole onion. He doesn't like the onions, he likes the taste. So, yeah, you want to get a nice colour on your onions, because by caramelising the onions you're going to get a bit more sweetness out of it, and it helps to darken your sauce. Excuse a couple of carrots with what I have in there. Right, so we've got a bit of colour on our onions. You don't have to be too finely diced, it's up to yourself. This is a comforting hearty stew, as it were. We have an escaped carrot. Now at this point, so that your carrots don't burn, is when you add some salt. You can use Kunsel salt if you like. And we're going to put on the lid to let that sweat a bit longer. First thing I did actually before I prepped all that was peel and cut my tatties, and I've got them soaking in cold water. I'm going to mash them. You don't have to have them mashed. I quite like just plain boiled tatties, but I'm going to have mashed. So don't worry if your bottom of your pan starting to brown. Fine, this is all kind of flavour and it's going to add colour to the dish. Just 2-3 minutes more and then go on to the next stage of getting minced. Okay, so you can tell by how it sounds. You've got some of the moisture out of there. So put them back into your dish. Got a good bit of colour in the bottom of this pan. It's not burnt. Chefs don't burn things, they caramelise them. And what I want to do is just add a little bit more fat just so I can colour these whole onions. Now, if you're on a diet, by all means use lean mince, but I would urge against it for the simple reason that the fat has got all the flavour. And when you cook mince or anything stewed or boiled when it's got fat in it, the fat will rise to the top. You can always scrape that off. Okay, so just getting a bit of colour on those onions, as you can see. If you want, you could do the same with the carrots, but I don't want to. So at this stage, I'm going to put in my mince. Not going to add any more fat, because there's enough fat in the mince. You just want to keep an eye on this, keep it stirring. Obviously you put on the fan if you've got one, or open a window, instead of sweating like a hooker in church.
Oh. How much mince did you say that is?
That was £1. That could easily feed 4, and if you're clever, or if you're thrifty, you could make that feed 6 or even 8. You know, if you want to use more vegetables. The reason for the whole carrots actually is because I had a boss that didn't like carrots. I like the taste, the sweetness that the carrots bring to mince. So what I did is I cooked them whole in the pan like that, and when I was ready, when the mince was ready, sorry, I'd blitz up the carrots and add them back, and he had no idea they were in. He said it was half a fine.
Until now.
Well, he probably isn't watching me on YouTube, but yeah. So it's a good tip if you've got kids that don't like veg. Leave them chunky, hide them in your stews and casseroles, take them out, waz them up, add them back. And there's a brown sauce in them, they're not going to see it.
Now Mama would always put in oxo cube in.
If you want to put oxo cubes in, by all means. If you want to use beef stock, or a stock cube, or you know those North stock pots, other stock pots are available. I am not being paid by Nor because I'm a fucking nobody. I personally don't think it needs it, because if you buy good quality butcher's mince, the beef will have flavour, and if you add a bit of thyme and a bit of bay and plenty of veg, it's going to have taste. So yeah, you'll hear how it stops sizzling, because generally speaking mince hasn't been aged on the bone. Obviously mince isn't on the bone, it's meat that was on the bone, mince. But mince hasn't been aged like a sirloin steak or a rib or anything like that, because the area that it comes from isn't covered in a thick layer of fat which protects it from going off. But that was one of the reasons I drained this. As you can see, there's not a lot of liquid in there. If that had been supermarket mince, it would have been probably 2-3 times as much as that. I also saw an advert lately for cooperative mince. It was their value range, and it was, you know, half a kilo of mince for only such and such. But it didn't represent good value for money, because 25% of that was fat. So a quarter of it was fat, which would float to the top and you'd skim off. So really, you know, no matter how strapped for cash you are, you can use decent mince by all means, and just bulk it up with something else. So yeah, I'm going to let this properly brown. That's not dark enough for me, that's grey. So this will be another 5, maybe even 10 minutes, because I want to get all the moisture out of that before adding any back. Don't ask me why, it just works okay. You can hear how this is sizzling and spitting. That's because most of the water's evaporated from it. If I take it off momentarily, you'll see there's little sort of caramelised bits. They have been catching to the bottom of the pan, which is good. That's colour and flavour. A bit like when you brown a steak. It's going to add that sort of flavour to it. So let it catch, then scrape it off. Now I'm at this stage. If you want to use beef stock, you can, but I'm just add a splash of cold water to that just to make sure that I've gotten everything off the bottom. Now, if you want to thicken it with Bisto or corn flour, which I normally would, you just put all your water in at this moment of time. But I'm going to thicken it using buckwheat flour. So for those that maybe want to use regular plain flour, they could use plain flour at this stage. So I'm going to let this water evaporate and then show you what to do next. Righty-ho. So the mince is browned. My water or stock I've used to deglaze the pan. I'm going to take it off the heat and use a spoon that I found on the floor here.
Look, you bent down there with such ease. It must be all that yoga you've been doing.
Oh, it must be. So you want to sprinkle in, depends how thick you like it. I'm going to, 2 of these will do me. You can always thicken it again later if you're not happy.
Why are you using buckwheat?
I'm using buckwheat flour because you've got special needs and you can't digest the gluten, which is the protein found in wheat. Buckwheat flour, I've used it pretty successfully as a wheat flour alternative in cooking. I've never thought of it before, so get this back in the heat. Good thing about using flour to thicken your mince, because if you are using sort of cheapish mince, it's got a lot of fat, the flour will absorb it. So, I failed to say that, I forgot to tell you even, failed to say I forgot to tell you that I put the oven on, because I'm going to braise this mince in the oven. So,
What does braising mean?
braising is stewing in an oven. Okay, so just add your liquid. You could get to your desired thickness and consistency now, should you wish. You don't have to. And then you add your browned vegetables. I like my mince quite runny, not as runny as a Ugandan's arsehole, but wet enough. Plop my onions and my carrots in, pop the top. Sprig of thyme, my bay leaf. That's up to the boil. Lid on. If you want, you could put a thing of cling film in tin foil over it to seal it, and then we're going to put this in an oven about 180 for around 2 hours, in which time you've got time to tidy up, and if you wanted to do your tatties during this period of time, then there's time to do it. I'm going to have more wine and do some yoga.
Is that your yoga done now?
That's me done. That's an hour and a half of yoga. So the mince has been in the oven for an hour and a half. Now's the time to put the tatties on and make the dumplings. Okie dokie. Now to the job at hand. So you soak the tatties for good reason. It's so that they don't get all claggy and you get nice light mash. So you see all the starch is coming out of the water, so you want to drain this. Okay, fresh water, cold of course, and some Kunsel salt. Lid on, put them up full wax now until they come to the boil. Then we'll make the dumplings. If you don't have time to soak tatties and that, give them a good wash because it does make a bit of a difference, you know. Right, nice easy dumplings. I tore a suet, other suets are available. There's a recipe in the back, simple as that. Unfortunately I haven't got self-raising flour. What I do have though is bicarb and buckwheat flour, which is gluten free for Katie's special needs, I've got salt, pepper and a chopped spring onion in there just for something different. You can add whatever you want. So, although I'm not using a teaspoon, that's roughly a teaspoon of bicarb. You want two dessert spoons of suet. In fact, make that three. 3 dessert spoons of suet, and then 3 heaped dessert spoons of flour. As such. 2, 3. So basically the general rule is twice the amount of flour to suet. So, now if you want, you could use cold stock in this, but you can just use cold water. There's not a specific recipe. It's literally just enough water to bind it, so you've got a slightly sticky dough. You don't want it to be as sticky as a spastic's chin, that's far too much water. That's roughly the consistency that you want, just so that it just drops off a spoon. Now if you really want, you can wet your hands and roll little balls. I'm not going to do that. As you can see, there's my mince. So I'm going to use two dessert spoons to make little quenelles. Don't have to be pretty. You just drop them on the top. Hopefully this made up recipe that just popped into my head makes between 4 and 6 of these. For those of you that don't know what these are called, they're called quenelles. Quenelles. And you literally just do this back and forth. When I was a commie chef, I was really shy at doing this. And I had a head chef who thought it'd be funny to tell me to go into town and look for quenelle spoons. Maybe in a thick prick. Went and did that. Thanks, Colin. So that goes back in the oven. They should be cooked in roughly the same time that your tatties are cooked and mashed and what have you. Next stage to do is get tidied up. If you're having vegetables, get them prepared. We're having peas, which is a classic accompaniment. If you like peas in your mince, now would be the time to do it before you put the dumplings in. Don't put them in right at the start. There's nothing worse than a really soft brown pea. It's a medical condition, really.
Back in the room.
You're back in the room. Yolanda. Okay, 2 hours have passed. My mashed potatoes are done. Show you now to mash tatties. My peas, frozen peas, I've got a wee glug of olive oil in there and literally a tiny little knob of butter, salt and pepper. The hob that the tatties were on, get that in there. So many people overcook peas, even from frozen. Some people even buy tinned peas. Ashley Runcie, Clatty Hoor. Oh, we have dumplings.
That's a good noise.
I hope so. It's all it leaves for me now is to plate it up. Wee tip for plating up mashed tatties is to put some cling film on the spoon. But we'll come back once I've got it plated, because you ain't watching me do it. It's a secret. Oh, and there we go. Minced tatties, dumpling, peas. Shit, I forgot a scarly. Oh god. Oh well, I'll have to do a video on scarly another time.
Okay. Why did you braise the mince instead of stewing it?
Well, you could stew it absolutely stew it on top of the stove all you like, but lid's cooled down now. It's because the pan won't burn, you won't catch the arse of the pan. If you're stewing it, I would thicken it afterwards. Same results, it's just to get a more controlled, gentler heat in the oven. Anyway, happy, crappy cooking. Mince and Tatties.